panelists are willing to do to save the galaxy's civilizations, themselves included. Tribunal, temporal investigator.
Thank you. Before I read the Prime Directive, we need to have proof of who was in attendance for this session. So if everyone could look at the camera and smile. Fabulous. Thank you so much. The Prime Directive, also known as Starfleet Command General Order 1, the Non-Interference Directive, or the principle of non-interference, is the embodiment of Starfleet's most ethical principles, non-interference with other cultures and civilizations. At its core is the philosophical concept that covered personnel should refrain from interfering in the natural, unassisted development of societies, even if such interference is well-intentioned. The Prime Directive is viewed as so fundamental to Starfleet that officers swear to uphold the Prime Directive even at the cost of their own life or the lives of their crew. As the Independent Federation Council mentioned, these are changing times. So I'm here to make you aware of a scenario. I've come from the very near future to alert you of the following. There is a planet out in the galaxy on which half the planet lives in harmony. They have multiple resources which they freely either trade or give to other civilizations. They've been doing this for eons. The other half of this planet is the evil empire. The two have remained separate, essentially ignoring each other for time eternal until just recently. The evil empire has invaded the peaceful civilization. Somewhat similar to the Borg, but where the Borg would assimilate, the evil empire is decimating everything. They've invaded because they want the resources and land, but they're destroying everything in the process. The Federation is aware of the situation and how it's unfolding. The peaceful civilization has not asked for help from the Federation, but based on what's happening, should the Federation continue to uphold the Prime Directive? Why or why not? That is the question. Based on what's happening, should the Federation uphold the Prime Directive? Why or why not? We will hear from our panelists one at a time, starting with Spock. I will introduce them the first time around. There's another scenario we'll be going over as well. Spock will be our first respondent. And although he misunderstands human motivation, Spock is a highly intelligent and original thinker who notices patterns others rarely do. He's also a genuine and loyal friend who is immensely valued by those around him. Spock, how do you answer this question?
This is a serious matter, and we need to be clear with our deliberations. Stating the peaceful civilization has not asked the Federation for help implies that they are aware that the Federation exists, and therefore the Prime Directive does not apply in the usual sense. But for the sake of argument, I'll assume that the peaceful civilization hasn't asked because they are not aware that we are here to be asked. The Prime Directive aims to prevent interference with the internal development of civilizations that are less technologically advanced. There are many reasons to follow it. I will focus on respecting autonomy and avoiding unintended consequences. Built into the Prime Directive is an assumption that cultures are better off if left to their own devices. Interference by Starfleet, even if well-intentioned, is judged likely to interfere in unanticipated ways. And if the culture in question is to deal with unintended harms, it would be better if they result from the culture's own free choices. This respects a civilization's own values, beliefs, and practices, rather than imposing quote unquote better ones upon them. I'm reminded of something from Earth's mid-20th century, when a despot named Mao Zedong thought he could improve the food supply by eliminating sparrows. These birds were consuming grain at an alarming rate, and Mao decreed a mass slaughter of them for the greater good. One could make an argument that it was the ethical choice. Once the sparrows were almost gone, the locusts, now without their natural enemy, multiplied and ate so much grain that it contributed to, if not caused, the Great Chinese Famine. It's possible that 50 million people died. So it may have been the ethical choice, but you have to understand something about ethics. The rules of ethics are not discovered like the laws of physics. They are invented like the rules of the road. Each society makes up its own moral code. Each moral code reflects the values of the society. One society cannot be said to be better than another, and so neither can one moral code. There simply is no single overall standard of right and wrong. You are entitled to your own views, but you have no reason to think that they are better than those held by other cultures. That's why you have to obey the Prime Directive.
Thank you, Spock. Very logical. I wouldn't have expected anything less. I do need to say also, everyone has 3 minutes to answer. At the red, the Federation timekeeper will show the red card. The Independent Federation Council will mute you as soon as the red hits. So make sure you're within that time. And also so far, everybody's being well behaved, and I do appreciate that. I know we have some antagonists here. Should you start to get unruly and out of control, you will be muted as well by the Independent Federation Council until it's your turn to speak. With that being said, our next speaker on the Prime Directive will be Khan. Khan is an extremely intelligent and ruthless terrorist and is the most prominent of the genetically engineered human augments of the late 20th century. Considered a genocidal tyrant who conquered and kills in the name of order. Khan does have a slight failing though, and that is his need for vengeance could be his undoing. Khan, how do you answer the question? Knowing the outcome, should the Federation still follow the Prime Directive? Knowing all beings will be destroyed, or not all beings will be destroyed, based on what's happening, should the Federation continue to uphold the Prime Directive? What is your answer, Khan?
Members of the Council, I am Khan Noonien Singh. See me in all my glory. Take a look at my long hair. As you may know, I controlled a quarter of Earth when I was in power during the eugenics wars. I and my people saw the benefits of my superior intelligence when dealing with you regular primitive human beings. The unjust actions of the Federation and lesser humans were dictated by their less than optimal DNA and reasoning skills. My story is not one of normal evolution. I was engineered to be more intelligent, stronger, and more crafty. In fact, I do not need these glasses. I simply wear them because it's a fashion statement. I am known as the best of the human augments. Had I not been misunderstood and thwarted by lesser humans, we would have brought greater advancement to human civilization by propagating human augments while whittling down the lesser human populations. When I was exiled to SETI Alpha 5 with my people, we had the chance to create a new society. If you hadn't sent us to a doomed planet, we would have thrived. If history has shown us anything, it's that the most intelligent life forms eventually destroy themselves as they increase technological development. They plunder their planets and then go to war with themselves due to scarcity and environmental collapse. It is based on my experience and knowledge and wisdom that in this case, I disapprove of what you call the Prime Directive. I think we should go in and help the civilization that is being attacked. We can help them build their technology and tactics so that it is at parity with the attacking civilization, the ones you call evil. We simply allow them to fall into a warfare state of attrition. When they are both at their weakest, we would then come in as a savior to their planet. Naturally, we would force them into indentured servitude and profit from their resources. It's only a fair price for our beneficence. Without intervention, they would undoubtedly cause extinction for themselves and all life forms on their planet. Is that a moral outcome that the Federation is prepared to accept? Is survival not the greatest imperative for any living creature? We would grant them survival, but not much else. Perhaps they will find purpose in toil. So there, you have the words and wisdom from the great Khan.
Spoken like a true egomaniac. Thank you for that input, Khan. Our next panelist will be none other than Captain Janeway herself. Captain Janeway does still blame herself for Voyager's situation. She chose to close their only shortcut home in order to protect an alien civilization. However, she is very loyal to her crew. Whether she's sweet or stern, depends on the situation. She is full of contradictions. And she is often willing to compromise and learn from other cultures, and can be very stubborn when it comes to protecting her crew. Captain Janeway. The Federation is aware of the situation on the planet spoken of. Should the Federation continue to uphold the Prime Directive? Why or why not?
Well, is there coffee on that planet? My answer really hinges on whether or not one of the resources being decimated on this planet is a source of coffee for my ship. Really, I just kid. Neelix has found plenty of sources for my daily cup of coffee. But in all seriousness, the Prime Directive to not interfere with the natural development of alien civilizations, less technologically advanced than ours, and to respect their autonomy, it's a guiding principle and a primary tenet for Starfleet, and one that should be at the forefront of our minds as we encounter new civilizations and decide whether or not to make first contact, and if so, how best to engage. In this specific instance, we appear to have limited knowledge of this culture's beliefs and their values and their practices, and especially their technological state. Why haven't they reached out to us to ask for help? Are they pre-warp? Are they even aware of life beyond their own planet? Do they not ask for help because of other specific reasons central to their way of life? Let's assume that one or all of these reasons hold water. Every Starfleet captain has had to struggle with decisions like this. And I believe our thinking around the Prime Directive has become more nuanced since those early Starfleet missions. Space must have seemed a whole lot bigger then, and it's not surprising that some of our early captains had to bend the rules a little. They were slower to invoke the Prime Directive and a little quicker to pull out their phasers, and a lot of them would probably be kicked out of Starfleet today, given the choices that they made. And this reminds me of a story we're probably all familiar with, Captain Kirk's involvement with the planet Neural during his first 5-year voyage. As you recall, it was a primitive planet at the time that he visited once, not just once, but twice, despite the directive. And while he set out to adhere to the spirit of the directive, if not the exact letter, by dressing like the locals and hiding his weapons, on the second visit, he and his team discovered that the hill people of the planet were in this skirmish with the local village. And members of the crew accidentally were caught using their phasers, causing tension amongst the hill people themselves and tension between them and the local village. Kirk discovered that the villagers were being aided by the Klingons and provided weapons that were beyond their technology, and ultimately decided to further bend his interpretation of the directive, providing the hill people with their own fire sticks in order to help the warring parties on equal footing and put them on equal.
Thank you, Captain Janeway. I know what happened that made you go over. It was too much coffee. Meetings like this probably should cut down on the caffeine just a little bit. Our next speaker, and I have to say I'm quite surprised that he's staying in his location right at the moment, and we haven't seen him popping up in our squares, is Q. Q is the Federation designation for an impudent, self-superior, and sometimes malevolent being from the otherwise mysterious Q continuum. He is depicted often in folklore as a rogue member of a society of godlike aliens who are nearly omnipotent by human standards. Q, what do you say to the question of, should the Federation continue to uphold the Prime Directive? Why or why not?
Prime Directive. You think yourself prime, superior. I assure you, you are not. Does the victor not have the right to the spoils of war? Have you not said over and over again, let things be? It makes a species noble. You are an exasperating species, you too, Spock. So now, with a glimpse of the future, you think you've got the advantage. Ah, the wisdom of the ages. Winds blow, tides turn. Famine comes when you least expect it. Hordes of wildebeest overtake their prey and fall sick to the disease they carried. Temporal ambassadors are no better than Don Kent. Weathermen hoping to avert something, like a long commute, or snow chains. A sickness comes upon a planet, and they tell you, watch out, stay in, avoid contact, surely you'll die. Does this not cull the herd? Make it stronger? But now you've seen the cards. You get to pick the answer, Prime Directive. We have a temporal ambassador telling us that upon this poor little planet is doomed. But that for the contribution of a few phaser shots, they'll settle back into a peaceful, noble existence. But how do you know that? Watching the drama of war, the possibility of great heroism? You fail to ask yourself, how did the oppressor get to where they are? Did their advanced technology and weaponry come from intervention from a superior intelligence. The strong deserve their victory. Federation, stay in your lane.
Thank you, Q. I have no other words for you. Except Dawn Kent. Poor Dawn. Our next speaker, Commander Beverly Crusher. Dr. Crusher is friendly, intelligent, caring, and determined. She does her duty well and is well loved by her crew. Her positive mindset and capacity for hope are exceptional for someone who's seen as much death and illness as she. Her empathy for patients and concern for their care above everything else has occasionally caused problems with the Prime Directive. So, Dr. Crusher, I'd be happy to hear what you have to say about the
Thank you,
case at
Madam
hand.
Investigator. Let's revisit a question that my colleague Spock asked a little earlier. Why didn't the party that was invaded ask for help? Perhaps they felt they had the situation under control. Perhaps they didn't know we existed. Perhaps they're aware that with the Prime Directive, there is not much that we can do, despite what some of my more opportunistic co-panelists may think. The Prime Directive is Federation law. For us to interfere would make us no better than the evil empire that is destroying the resources of this peaceful nation. I'd also like to go back to a television show that aired many, many years before any of us joined Starfleet. It was called Doctor Who. Doctor Who referred to certain things as fixed points in time that could not be changed. Perhaps this is a fixed point in time, and for us to interfere would completely destroy the space-time continuum as we know it. We are unable to interfere as much as we may want to help. The Prime Directive is clear on this point. The nation has not asked for help, and we can't give it. We would not be following Federation law if we were not doing so, or if we actually did so. It is unfortunate that resources are being destroyed. However, for us to get involved would again make us no better than the invading party. And frankly, with all of the Khan and Q and the Klingons and the Borg, if I were in the nation that was being invaded and someone flew in and said, we're going to help, I frankly wouldn't know who to trust. Back to you, Madam Investigator.
Thank you, Commander Crusher. Points well made. Our final speaker for this particular scenario is the Borg Queen herself. In human terms, the Borg Queen would be characterized as ruthless. She will do anything to protect the Borg collective. And where the drones show no emotions at all, the Queen actually does have emotions. And when necessary, she will employ psychological tactics like extortion or plain intimidation to get what she wants. Madam Borg Queen, how do you answer the question at hand?
Thank you, Madam Temporal Investigator. Honored speakers, it is a pleasure to be among you. Honored jurors, evaluators, how wonderful to see you gathered here. And Q, how often have we crossed paths over the continuum of time? All of you show such sympathy and empathy for these poor creatures on this planet. How very frustrating it must be for the invading part of the planet to be thwarted in their efforts to calm the chaos that has arisen because of the other half of the planet. How do I speak about the Prime Directive? Well, all I have to say is you guys have had eons to try to make things work. And what has happened? Nothing. Chaos reigns. You can't control people. What you need is the Borg. The Borg know. The Borg will control. Resistance is futile. We know how to control, to calm, to make productive the process of living and developing. And Khan, you are really not so great at all, because the Borg grow stronger as time grows longer. All of you, the Prime Directive is farcical. The Borg is the way to go, Madam Temporal Investigator.
Thank you, Madam Borg Queen. You sound so much like someone else I know. Before I get into the second scenario, I'm going to launch a poll for all the jurors. Hopefully. And since I'm not up on the whole poll thing, oh, it looks like it's working. Okay, while you were answering that poll, Phyllis, welcome. Could you name yourself juror number 7? I did say that I came from the near future, but I also have seen the distant future. The evil empire is so focused on taking over the peaceful civilization that they not only decimated the entire planet, but all other planets and civilizations in the galaxy. There are very few civilizations left due to the mass destruction. Had the Federation intervened, it could have been prevented. Knowing this is the outcome, should the Federation still follow the Prime Directive, knowing all beings will be destroyed, including all of us? Or should they rethink the situation and offer help before being asked? I'm going to start in reverse order. Madam Borg Queen, how do you answer that situation, knowing that we could all be destroyed in the distant future? How do you feel about the Prime Directive now?
Madam Temporal Investigator, thank you so much for that challenging question. Once again, I call upon you to understand that the Borg have the answer. With the Borg in charge, there will be no destruction. With the Borg in charge, all chaos will disappear. With the Borg in charge, there will be progress. Progress according to the Borg Directive, from which, I remind you, there is no need for resistance because it is futile. The Prime Directive, some created statement, some farcical commentary that is aimed at directing people and other beings to theoretically make a wonderful world that everyone works together in for the greater good. may I remind you what is going on all the planets now. May I remind you that going forward, it will not cease. May I remind you and challenge you that you cannot follow the prime directive and expect peace, prosperity, productivity, and calm. The Borg, on the other hand, have the prime directive in the trash can. May I offer you the opportunity to allow the Borg to guide all of civilization to a higher level. Thank you, Madam Temporal Investigator.
Thank you, Madam Borg Queen. Commander Crusher, what do you have to say about this far distant future?
Madam Investigator, I've been a member of Starfleet for quite some time, but I am a physician first. The scenario you described changes everything. We cannot allow the loss of that kind of life and that kind of civilization. Yes, I spoke a few moments ago in favor of the Prime Directive, but that was before lives were being destroyed and civilizations were being wiped out. We must find a way to interfere before that sort of thing happens. This is a humanitarian, this becomes a humanitarian situation, not a invasion where maybe we need to go in with phasers. Maybe we just need to go in with stretchers. I don't know. But there's got to be a solution in which no one dies or minimal people die and civilization is saved. The Prime Directive is law, as I mentioned earlier. But even things that are laws have been known to have exceptions. I think this is a scenario in which an exception to the Prime Directive would apply. Whether or not Starfleet and the Federation will agree with me, I don't know. But this sort of loss of life is not something that can be tolerated. And this sort of loss of life is something that we must work to prevent at all costs. This is not acceptable or something that can be tolerated. Because then why is the Federation around if we can't keep the planets within the Federation safe or the citizens therein safe and continuing to enjoy life as they know it? Back to you, Madam Investigator.
Thank you, Commander Crusher. Q, what do you have to say now?
I smell something in the air, and it's the Borg. Federation, Darwin has taught you well, survival of the fittest, adapt or become absorbed. Indeed, in your past, sacrifice and moral action rose to a paramount when they threatened your nice life. Your nice life is threatened. But back then, the Hebrews were herded into camps and you didn't move. Fortunately for them, although late, you came to their aid. Good thing the Prime Directive wasn't around then, huh? I suppose you think resistance is futile. To be frank, I think resistance works, Queen Anne. You see, the greatest threat to any sentient species, say that 3 times fast, is greed. They want what you have, or they want you. It's fundamental. You should try it. Although I'd never enslave anyone, yet your prime directive.
Say that
holds your-
now. You think I believe that?
Maybe we can work this out. It could be entertaining with your help. Appetizers are on me. Now I recall, you're passed correctly, you were the benefactor of Vulcan help in your pre-warp days, weren't you? But now you're so advanced. I'd rather watch the devastation. You'd rather watch the devastation of a civilization until recent weather reports. Oh, or is it UFO? Kept you occupied at Roswell, didn't it? If those folks on the planet watched rockets destroying their planet, instead, they saw something of a UFO destroying the rockets. Now, go play on your holodeck. I hear Amazon has an adventure where you get to save whales from windmills. Yeah, best not to meddle. Someone might get to live. Save a fake
Amazon
whale
is listed
instead.
on Earth, not now.
Go.
And you were also well behaved the first round. Captain Janeway, what do you have to say?
Thank you. So this scenario certainly puts things in a different light, in my opinion. I do have some questions and reservations about the motives behind bringing us this information, as we are not as familiar with you and how you came about this information. So let's just assume that we can trust that your vision of the distant future is accurate, that you have no ulterior motive for swaying our decisions and aren't omitting critical details of the war leading up to the annihilation of the majority of this galaxy. Like, while I do believe if we turn our backs on our principles, we stop being what makes us Starfleet and makes us Federation, less advanced cultures are better off left to their own devices to make their own progress and way in the galaxy. This is a different scenario. While it's true that the Prime Directive restricts us from influencing less advanced civilizations, we do strive to avoid interactions with them so we don't intentionally or unintentionally interfere with the course of their cultural and technological growth or inadvertently impose our own values and beliefs onto them. It is also true that the Federation is about sharing the universe with others, not merely studying other civilizations, not just about interacting and trading with those who have comparable or compatible technologies and advancements. The Federation espouses benevolence, justice, equal rights and freedom, and peaceful coexistence in cooperation. Ultimately, we all share this universe, and in the face of impending mass destruction and possible extinction of hundreds, or thousands even, of planets and cultures, it should be incumbent upon the Federation to ensure the galaxy remains largely intact, so the majority of these civilizations, including ours, retain the opportunities to grow, advance, and learn from their mistakes and each other. So again, assuming we have all the accurate information about the future outcome of this war, my recommendation is that we find a way to help these peaceful people and act in a way that, while appearing to bend the Prime Directive in the present, still adheres to the Federation's core values. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Janeway. Khan, what do you have to say?
Members of the council, Madam Investigator, once again, I, the great Khan, will speak words of wisdom. Hear me now. Do not be distracted by my beautiful locks, which were inspired by the great musician from the late 20th century known as David Lee Roth. If you had taken my advice to intervene in the first scenario, we would not have seen the complete destruction of the planet, not to mention all civilizations in the galaxy. But no, you prefer to live on some fantasy island with your heads in the sand. It just goes to show that my superior intellect allows me superhuman capability to peer into the future based on synthesis of logic, probability, and an understanding of culture and psychology. I suppose it, once again, serves the Federation right. You are mere hapless humans. Why do you not embrace augmentation? I may never understand, but I think perhaps the Borg Queen would understand. In this scenario, I believe that the Prime Directive should be adhered to. Most species, regardless of intelligence, are doomed to extinction by their own actions or by their own hand. They are motivated by power and greed. I think Q stole my line there. Rather, they are motivated by that power and greed rather than the advancement of body, mind, and spirit. I think the universe would be better off without these inferior civilizations. I've already experienced cryosleep, so I have no problem sleeping out the chaos and destruction that is sure to ensue. At the appropriate time in the future, I and my growing number of followers will emerge from our stasis and begin the process of colonizing these planets. You will then see, without the meddling of the Federation and without those pesky inferior beings, how human augments can live to their full potential. We shall repopulate these planets, not only with our superior selves, but also with both simple and advanced organisms that sustain life and contribute to our food stocks. We will build a new era of galactic civilization that rewards the smart, the strong, and the ever-changing. You unaltered humans bound by slow mutation may have a place in our new world order, but it will be one of service to the augments. I invite you to join our crusade. Thank you.
I see the resemblance between you and David Lee Roth. We will end these two scenarios with Spock. Spock, what do you say?
To intervene or not to intervene. The Prime Directive seems to line up with some intuitions that we should respect the autonomy of other cultures and strive not to inflict even unintentional harms on them. But there may be circumstances in which choosing not to intervene results in more harm. This is why the Prime Directive has had exceptions. The doctrine of human rights and the Prime Directive cannot both be true. But they are not related to each other as contradictories, rather as contraries. It is not the case that if one is true, the other must be false. Both can be false. I fail to see why one should respect the rules or customs of any culture where they exploit or mistreat its members. We should prevent such misuse if we can. It is also always possible to think of circumstances in which the failure to do wrong things would have had such bad consequences that doing them could not be wrong. Absolutist values are illogical. To decide what to do, we should scan the alternatives, take into account all their consequences, and do what will have the best results. It would be wrong to help the peaceful civilization if it will only worsen their situation. But it cannot be wrong when there is every reason to think that they and the universe will be better off and no countervailing evils will result. We cannot regulate away hard moral problems, like when and how to intervene in the affairs of other societies. When a hurricane hits an island, almost everyone agrees that we should help, and we do. When the evil empire invades a sovereign nation, almost everyone agrees they should not have done that. So what to do? The correct answer is never to turn our backs and say, sorry, Prime Directive. We can't avoid such mindless, irrational dogma. Our moral universe is interconnected. We should carefully consider our actions and inactions, and we should try to make life better for those who share the universe with us. We should do this even when the issues are complicated and solutions imperfect. We should do this even knowing we will fail sometimes. The answer to the bad judgment of the past is not no judgment, but better judgment. Or, if I were human, I'd say, intervene to beat hell.
Thank you, Spock. And thank you to all of our panelists. I appreciate the fact that for the most part, you all were well behaved. And Q pretty much stayed where he belonged. I didn't see him popping up in anyone else's area. The panel discussion is over. I'm going to send out another poll. And then I will, well, I was going to send out another poll, but I can't figure out how to get to it. So while I'm figuring that out, I will turn the session over to our Independent Federation Council.
Thank you, temporal investigator. This hearing is an important hearing. We have heard both sides of a very, very, very important situation. I would like to turn this hearing over to our Auditor General to continue on with these proceedings. Auditor General. Auditor General, the floor is now yours.
It looks like we might be having some technical issues with the Auditor General. We will ask for some evaluations from our team defense and team opposition. Let's start with the team defense.
Thank you, Madam Temporal Investigator. And thank you to Mr. Spock, Commander Beverly Crusher, and Captain Janeway for upholding the principles of the Prime Directive. I feel that you all brought forth very excellent arguments and suggestions. Especially Spock, I loved your example of the sparrows, and that by removing one, you may create the other as a problem. I wouldn't expect nothing less than you of that level of logic. I also appreciated Catherine Janeway of stating to us how nuanced the Prime Directive can be. And was surprised none of you brought forth the example of Commander Data when he communicated via pen pal with the young lady on a planet that was about to be destroyed, and that the Federation found a way to assist them without breaking the Prime Directive. Remember your history or we are doomed to repeat it. And Dr. Crusher, I especially loved your humanitarian approach, that a tremendous loss of life is no reason to uphold the Prime Directive. It is all very nuanced and a challenge. I think you all did an excellent job of presenting your arguments and opinions on the situation. Although Dr. Crusher did sneak in Doctor Who, you sneaky little critter, you. But all of you have been engaged in a little temporal nonsense through your time, but enough said. We do have to comply with the Prime Directive, but I agree with Captain Janeway that it is nuanced, and there are times that we have to make exceptions without being overtly present. I commend you all on a job well done and arguments well presented, and thank you for doing your research, Madam Temporal Investigator.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from the evaluator for the opposition.
Thank you, Khan, Q, and the Borg Queen. You all presented a a well-organized development of your own case. You stayed in character, 3 characters I've never experienced before. I enjoyed that you stayed in character. And that I really liked many references that you made in your stories. I like the ending of Cons when, although you didn't want the Prime Directive to continue and you thought that warfare with others is okay, and it would, without the Prime Directive, it would lead with you thought that the people would find purpose in their toil. So there was like a little silver lining as the final statement, and that stuck with me. Q was a little confusing for me. I think a lot of the language I couldn't connect with because I'm not a Star Trek aficionado. But I did like that he stayed in character and that you tried to make some references that could connect with me, like the long commutes and the snow tires and being told what to do. I liked a statement you said about the drama of war and something of heroism. The board queen, again, was in great character and talking about how the Prime Directive would cause chaos. She's so confident and she just wants to control everything and bring it to calm. She thinks that she could make a more productive living for people, and that they would live stronger and longer. But of course, they really wouldn't have much freedom. So considering their characters, they stayed in character. They came up with some good arguments, and I think they did a good job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I turn it over to our Auditor General to give us an overall evaluation of the session, the results for the poll. And I think I can share all the results and then you'll be able to see them. So while I'm sharing, Auditor General, AKA JD, would you like to give us some comments on the overall meeting? Need to turn your mic up.
Thank you, temporal investigator. I was absolutely gobsmacked at how prepared everyone was tonight, whether you were on the side of the Prime Directive or you would like to kick it down the road. Amazing. I hope you're getting some type of credit for this other than pats on the back. It went smoothly. There were some glitches in the agenda, some things out of order toward the end. It did not make any difference, though, I wouldn't think, to the observers of those in the peanut gallery. I appreciate the leadership of our temporal investigator. I know the effort that was put into this. I know how hard it is to herd a bunch of cats. And I think everyone today did a marvelous job. Now, I would like to call for the timers report.
Thank you, Auditor General. I will go in order of presentation. Spock for question 1, 2 minutes and 53 seconds. Khan, 2 minutes and 53 seconds. Captain Janeway, 3 minutes and 11 seconds. Q, 2 minutes and 28 seconds. Commander Beverly Crusher, 2 minutes and 16 seconds, and the board queen at 2 minutes and 26 seconds. For the second question, the board queen led off with 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Commander Beverly Crusher, 2 minutes and 11 seconds. Q, exactly 3 minutes. Captain Janeway, 2 minutes and 25 seconds. Khan, 2 minutes and 46 seconds. And Spock closed it out at 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Team Defense, 2 minutes and 9 seconds for the evaluation, and Team Opposition, 2 minutes and 24 minutes for the evaluation. Back to you, Auditor General.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask our temporal investigator her findings, and she has the floor.
All right. For question 1. Team for the defense, who are Spock, Janeway, and Crusher, 56%. And the question for which team presented the stronger argument. And team for the opposition, who's Q, the Borg, Queen, and Khan, were at 44%. For question number 2, team for the defense, 55%, and team for the opposition, 45%. Then the final verdict, team for the defense, 58%, team for the opposition, 42%. I appreciate everybody helping with this. We had people from a couple of different clubs joining in. I appreciate everybody coming in who were the jurors, my independent federation counselor, the people who were voluntold to be evaluators. Appreciate that too. It was fun, and it just shows that there's a different way you can moderate a panel discussion, which truly could be a major yawn, which for anybody who's not a Trekkie, this might have been a major yawn. I apologize in advance, but it was nice to see how well, like JD said, everybody prepared. I mean, Dave had to drop off because he has another class, but who knew he was so funny? I mean, truly, I did not know that he had that kind of sense of humor. And I have to say that we had a dry run on Friday, and Spock did a good job of staying in character. And at that dry run, I thought he was mad because I didn't get the connection until he finally said, I'm trying to stay in character and you people are making it very difficult. So kudos to everyone for that. It was fun. Linda, good job. I know you're not a Trekkie, but you stepped up, and way to go on that. And anybody else have anything to say? I just can't thank you all enough. Our area director is here. Maybe we should hear from her and see what she needs to say. Thank you, Federation Timekeeper. I know you have another place to beam off to. Oh, it looks like Ilana, are you frozen?
Yeah, no, I'm here. I just
no,
want to
you're
say thank you, everybody. You did a great job. I'm not a Trekkie, but this was definitely very interesting and a great meeting.
Thank you very much. If anyone else have anything to say, if not, I appreciate all of you. The meeting was recorded and we will stop